Hi everyone, welcome back to Bringing More to the Table. Today I'm going to be making some delicious cinnamon rolls. These are super easy, the dough is very easy to make and super soft and way delicious. So let's get started with our ingredients today. So today we have half a cup of milk. This is 2% milk, but you can use whatever you have available. Quarter cup of white granulated sugar. Quarter cup of butter. This is unsalted, but you use whatever you have. You can also use margarine in this if you have that. And 1 teaspoon of salt. So that's the first part, or the first step in our recipe, because we have to heat the milk to not boiling or scalded, but just lightly warmed with some bubbles. And once it starts to bubble, take it off the heat. Add your sugar and butter and salt and give it a mix until all the stuff is melted and combined. And then let it sit for about 10 minutes to cool slightly before it gets added to the rest of the ingredients. So the rest of our ingredients today are 2 large eggs that I've got here in my bowl, and I've already beat them up. 4 cups of all-purpose flour, and then for the yeast, it's 2 1/4 teaspoons of active dry yeast. If you have packaged, that's fine. And 1 teaspoon of sugar. And then we're going to add the yeast and the sugar into a 1/4 cup of warm water, 110 degrees. And we're going to set it aside and let it rest for about 10 minutes so the yeast can get active. So I'm going to get started. I'm going to get my milk into my pot, get that heated up. And once I've got that heated, then I'll be back to show you the butter and the sugar and all that, okay? Okay, so I've got my butter and milk and sugar and salt all melted here. I'm gonna let that sit and cool for about 10 minutes or so. So in the meantime, I'm going to mix in my yeast and my 1 teaspoon of sugar into 110 degrees of warm water. This is half a cup of warm water in my measuring cup. And use a little bit bigger measuring cup because the yeast is going to bubble up and foam once it starts to ferment. So you don't want it to overflow in whatever you may be using, whatever type of measuring cup. So just give that a stir to incorporate the yeast and the sugar, to dissolve that, and then just set that aside for about 10 minutes, and that should be good enough for the yeast to have proofed a bit. And then we're going to get everything into the mixer and start making our dough. Okay, so my yeast is fermented a little bit, and my milk and butter and sugar mixture has cooled down as well. I did check the temperature, and it's at about 106 degrees, so that's probably good to go into the mixer now. So I want to show you how the yeast has come out here. So you can see that it's all bubbled up now and nice and frothy, and that's how it should look, and you can tell that your yeast is good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put everything into my mixer. Just give this a little stir. If you don't have a mixer, you can certainly use a hand beater, a hand mixer, or you can do it by hand. Just be a little bit different. Or you could actually probably even do this dough in a food processor if you had one, just to incorporate all your items. Now, here's the butter and the milk, and you can see the butter on top. So just give it a little bit of a mix to incorporate that butter back in. And that's great, just like that, and just pour it right in there, and it shouldn't hurt anything now because it has cooled down. Okay, and then I'm going to put in my 2 beaten eggs as well, so just right in there, and then I'm just going to pour the flour right in there on top, and I'm going to turn the mixer on. So now the mixer, I'm going to let this mix on low until it starts to incorporate and pull away from the sides of the mixer. And then it's going to beat for about 5 to 6 minutes. So that's kneading the dough. And as I said, if you don't have a mixer, you'll have to knead it by hand, which will be about 5 to 10 minutes or so. Okay, so right into the pot, into our bowl, not pot, it's not a pot. And then we're just going to put it down. And remember, don't turn it on high, just turn it on low so the flour doesn't go everywhere and all over the place. So just start it at a low speed and let it mix. And then once it starts to pull away from the sides of the bowl, then turn it up to let it knead. Okay? Okay, Okay, so my dough's been mixing for about a minute or so, and as you can see, it's starting to incorporate all together and coming away from the sides of the bowl. So now I'm just going to leave this go for about 5 to 6 minutes. I'm going to turn it up to about a 4 on the mixer and just let it knead my dough. And then we'll be back to show you how. Okay, so my dough is done. So I'm just going to shut off my mixer. And I'm going to take it off the dough hook and I'm going to put it onto a lightly floured countertop just to form it. And then it's going to go into a bowl with a little bit of flour in it, and I'm going to cover it and put it in a warm place to rise for about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the temperature in your home. Okay, so we're just going to take this off the dough hook here. And now this dough is not too sticky. It is a little sticky, but not really sticky. And it's very soft and supple. It's actually a really nice dough to work with. So just take it off there. Set my dough hook aside. I'm just going to get it out of the bowl here. I hope. Okay, so as you can see, it's a little sticky, but not real sticky. You can form it nicely in your hands without it sticking to you so much. So I'm just going to put it on a lightly floured countertop here just to shape it a little bit. Just form it into a nice ball, round it up like that, and that's it. This is super simple dough to work with, and very nice cinnamon rolls these make. So this is just going into my bowl. I've got just a little bit of flour in the bowl, that's it. And I'm going to put a little bit of flour on the top, just like that, nothing crazy. And then I'm going to cover it, and I'm going to put it in my oven with the light on because it'll be warmer in there and it'll be draft free. So I'll see you in a little bit once this has risen. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make the filling for the cinnamon rolls while my dough is rising. So for the filling, you need half a cup of butter. I'm using unsalted butter today at room temperature. 3/4 cup of brown sugar, not packed, just loose brown sugar. 3 teaspoons of cinnamon I've added to my brown sugar, and I did add a pinch of salt as I'm using unsalted butter. Now you can use margarine if you like, or salted butter, whatever you have available in your area. So I'm going to start with my half a cup of butter into my bowl, and I'm going to turn this on the mixer to let it beat and get nice and fluffy, just like if you were making buttercream icing or something like that. You want your butter to be soft and fluffy, so when you add the sugar in, it makes it a nice mixture. And it is quite a nice filling, and if you don't like as much cinnamon as well, you can add a little less, but I like a little more. So I'm just going to turn this on. I'm going to let it beat until it's nice and fluffy and soft, and then I'll be back to show you I'm adding in my sugar. Okay, so I've got my butter mixed here. It mixed for about 1 minute to 2 minutes on a higher speed in the mixer. So it's nice and fluffy and light now. And when you're mixing butter, it does change in color the more it gets whipped and the softer it gets. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to add in my 3/4 cup of brown sugar, not packed, with the 3 teaspoons of cinnamon already mixed into it and a pinch of salt. So I'm just going to pour this right in on top of the butter. I'm going to turn the mixer back on, and I'm going to let this mix until it's nice and fluffy. Okay, so I've got my filling done. It did take about 5 minutes to mix in the mixer. Now this is just going to sit out on the counter at room temperature because you want this soft so you're able to spread it onto the dough. So it is very nice and soft and fluffy filling and quite delicious. So we'll see you shortly. Okay, so my dough has risen. It's doubled in size. That took about 45 minutes, I'm going to say. So it is quite nice and soft and supple. So I'm just going to take it out of the bowl right onto a floured countertop, and I'm going to roll this out, and then we're going to spread the filling on top, and then we're going to make these absolutely delicious cinnamon rolls. And I have a different way to make them too. So right out of the bowl comes out nice, no trouble at all, and you'll see the flour sitting there, and that's okay. So just take your dough and push it out, and it's very easy to work with this dough. It doesn't stick to your hands. It's just quite nice, soft and supple. So just push it out with your hands like that. Lift it up, turn it over, and just spread it out some more. And then you're going to get your rolling pin and you're going to start rolling this out. Now, if this dough is sticky for you, don't be afraid to flour it a little bit or flour your rolling pin. But as you can see, it's rolling quite nicely and it's not sticking to my rolling pin at all. So just like that. You want it in a rectangular shape as best you can get it. Sometimes dough is a little bit harder to roll. So I'm just going to take it and turn it. Just lift it up so it's not sticking and so it doesn't tear. And you can stretch it with your hands if you like. Sometimes that works better for people. And then again, just roll it out with your rolling pin. And you want it to be, well, maybe I'm going to say about a 1/4 inch, yeah, about that thickness, because you are going to turn this over onto its self. And I'm going to, instead of actually making rolls, I'm going to be making little cinnamon knots, and I'm going to be putting it into a muffin tin. So this is quite a nice recipe. And like I said, this dough is very nice, very easy to work with. So that should be good. That looks about right to me. And you're probably going to get, depending how many you want, or how big you cut them, I should say, anywhere from 12 to 18 of them. All right, so that's done there. So now I'm going to take my filling that I made earlier, and I'm going to just spread this onto my dough here. So just take it, make sure it's room temperature because you want it to be able to spread nicely without ripping your dough. And that's all we're going to do. Just put it on there, and then I'm going to get the offset spatula and I'm going to spread this onto all over. Just scrape that off. Now sometimes cinnamon rolls can seem a little intimidating to make, but they're really quite simple. The longest part of the dough, or making cinnamon rolls, is the dough part, waiting for it to rise and proof up. So because it does take 2 times for your dough to rise. You got to do the initial rise and then punch it down, roll it out, and then you have to let it rise again once you have this step all done here before you bake them. Now, the baking doesn't take any time at all. They bake for about 15 to 20 minutes in a 375-degree oven, so it's quite simple. And then once we get these done and into the pans, we're going to let them rise. And then before I bake them, I'm going to brush them with an egg wash, which I've got 1 large egg beaten with 2 tablespoons of cream added into it and just beat up. And you just brush that over the top. And that makes them just brown a little nicer, and it gives them a nice little crunch on the top. So these are very delicious. I hope you'll try this recipe because they are very good. They're nice and soft, and they last for about 3 days. And again, there's no preservatives in this, so you know they'll last on the counter, or you can freeze them, whatever's best for you. If you want to have company coming, or you know want to make them ahead. I'm making these for my husband as it's his birthday, and these are one of his favorites. So I'm getting these made for him. All right, so that looks pretty good. Nice, smooth, even layer, thin layer, not too thick. Try to get it to the edges as best you can. That looks good to me. And I'm just gonna scrape this off here, get all of that in there. Don't want to waste any of it. Yeah, great. So, all right, so now I'm gonna take my dough and I'm gonna fold it over itself. So I'm going to just start at this side here, and I'm just going to lift it up, fold it in, just like that. Just give it a nice smooth. And then again back with the other side. And just right over like that. And that's how our dough is going to be. Then just give it a stretch. As I said, this dough is quite easy to work with. Now, I've got a bench scraper here that I'm going to use to cut my dough, or if you have a pizza cutter, that works well as well to cut the dough. So I'm going to make these a little bit different than a normal cinnamon roll or cinnamon bun, whatever you want to call them. I'm just going to set the end piece aside over there. So all you're going to do is just cut them, and depending how many you want, maybe 12 to 18 I should get out of this. So just give them a cut and then lift your dough away. Now take your bench scraper and cut down like this so that you're going to have 3 pieces, and make sure you leave a piece at the end because you're kind of going to make a little braid out of these is what you're going to do. So you're just going to take it and go over like that, just like braiding someone's hair basically, and then you're going to take it and you're going to roll it up just like that, and then it's going to go into the muffin tin, and we're going to do as many as I can get. I'm hoping I can get 18 of these. So I'm going to get these going. I'll show you once I've got them all done. Okay, so I've got my cinnamon rolls done here. Now I did roll them, as you saw. I braided them. And if you don't want to do a triple braid, you can just do a double and twist and right into the pan. And I did spray my muffin tin with a cooking spray. So make sure you do grease your pan. Now if you don't have muffin tins, you can put them in a regular baking dish. Make sure you spray the baking dish. So now these are going to go into proof again. They have to rise until doubled, and then they get baked at 375 for about 20 minutes or so. Before I put them in to bake though, I will show you. I'm going to brush the egg wash on top, and then we're going to get them baked. Okay, so my cinnamon rolls here are done rising for the second time. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to brush them with an egg wash. So this is 1 large egg with 2 tablespoons of half and half cream in it. Now you could use just regular whole milk or whatever you have, but I used cream. So I'm just going to brush this on the top. And then these are going into the oven at 375 for 15 to 20 minutes. Probably 20 minutes they're going to take. And they've rose beautifully. They look great. So, and be delicate when you're brushing this on because the dough is soft. So you don't want to, you know, deflate your dough. So that's all we're going to do. We're just going to brush right across the top. Get that on there. And then right into the oven to bake. And then when they come out, you're going to let them cool for a little bit on a wire rack in the pan, and then take them out of the pan about 10 minutes after they've cooled. And then that way the sugar can caramelize a little bit on them, and they're going to be absolutely delicious. Okay, so I've finished putting the egg wash on my buns. They're going into the oven, 375 for 20 minutes. Now another thing with these, be careful when you're baking them because the sugar, as it cooks and heats up, may overflow from your pan onto your stove. So I don't want to ruin my new stove. I had to get a new oven. That's why I haven't done a video for a little while. So I put tin foil on the bottom rack here, just so that they don't boil over, because the sugar, when it gets hot, does tend to boil over out of the pan. So my new oven is a nice new Bosch. My last one broke, so that's why I haven't done a video for a while. So I'm going to set my timer for 20 minutes, so I'll see you shortly. Okay, so my cinnamon rolls here have been baking for 20 minutes. I'm going to take them out of the oven, and I'm going to put them on a wire rack to let them cool. And don't those look amazing? Super delicious. Now I do got to be careful here because they're very hot, and I don't want to get that sugar all over my oven. But look at those. Don't they look great? Now all this sugar here is gonna harden and caramelize, and it's gonna be so good on those rolls. So let me just get out the little one, and then that's it. So let them cool in the pan. Let them cool in the pan for about 10-15 minutes till you can touch them, and then take them out and let them finish cooling on the wire rack before you store them. Now you can store them in an airtight container, for about 3 days. They'll stay nice and fresh, or you can freeze them for a later date and time. But these are absolutely wonderful, and I really hope you'll give this recipe a try. Once I take them out, once they've cooled a little bit, I'll cut one and let you see how they look. Okay? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Okay, so my cinnamon buns have cooled. I'm going to take one out of the pan just so I can show you how they look. And the dough is amazing, really it is amazing, super soft and delicious. And as you can see, they're still warm, and there's the dough inside, nice and soft and tender. So I hope you'll give this recipe a try. I thank you for watching my video. Please subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you soon.